Hello, going to do something, well, a little bit different for a mid-week, start of the week video. It's not a gameplay, it's a video response to Happy Console Gamer, Johnny Millennium and Robman. They have asked a question: what is your favourite controller? And they've invited video responses, so this is my video response. I can't just show you one controller. I can't. I've also got to break one of their rules as well, because it was meant to be controllers and not joysticks, but I have to include a joystick. Or two, in fact. Okay. Also, I'm going to show some of my least favourite controllers, because there are some that are just so... they aggravate me so much. Where to start? Okay. Least favourite then, eh? I got a few that... some actually, controllers that I can't get along with, sometimes it's because they're not a bad controller. Like that, the N64, it's a clever, well thought out controller. There's been a lot of time and effort put into the design of this. It's very versatile. You know, multiple ways you can hold it, multiple ways you can use it. I just cannot get on with it. This I find, ugh, it just doesn't work for me at all. No, it's too flimsy. It has a certain amount of friction that makes... you're supposed to be able to have real sensitivity and precision and everything, and I just can't. I cannot get on with it. D-pad's fine-ish. Actually, it feels kind of nasty there. No, I find this so completely unintuitive. The only buttons actually that to me work are the shoulder buttons. Everything else feels nasty, and I'm forever like, oh, I don't know which way I want to hold it. Can't get on with it, and it's a shame, but there it is. That'll upset a lot of Nintendo fans, but you know, me and Nintendo, I'm used to upsetting Nintendo fans. What else? Okay, that Sword CGL M5 controller. You can include with this the Mattel Intellivision controller, and indeed the ColecoVision controller, though the ColecoVision is more of a stick. Those have the buttons on the sides. This thankfully doesn't. The problem with this is it is completely unresponsive. You've really got to push hard on that disc, and it is I don't know if it's 4-way or 8-way. Trying to make it go any way was difficult. I did some videos recently where I played some M5 games. I had to stop using this and use the keyboard because it was so awful. I mean, in terms of design, it works, you know. Disc there, thumb there, fine. But the build quality, it shouldn't be bad. Maybe when it was brand new it was alright, though I mean, I don't believe this has been used a lot. Having the M5 and knowing the quality of the games on it, I do not believe the previous owner used this thing much at all. So I don't think it's wear and tear, I just think it's a god-awful controller. Yeah. That. The Philips sex toy. That is an interesting design. It was kind of clever because it's a remote control as well as a game controller. And yeah, I know that you could get a gamepad style controller as an optional extra. Not what it was sold separately, yes. But this is what you got with your Philips CDI. And so you control it with your thumb on that, which it moves a tiny bit, and then you've got your 3 buttons, which are actually in fact only 2 buttons. These 2 lower ones do the same thing, and that up there. So you had to do it two-handed. Kind of looks a bit like a Star Trek next generation phaser, just to be really geeky there, but that had to be said. Yeah, this is bloody awful. Perfectly adequate remote control for playing your video CDs, which obviously everyone has. Yeah, that. It's alright for navigating through the menus on the CDI menu screen. It's fine for that. Playing games, no. Right, now to upset some more Nintendo fans. That, hate it, really, truly, God, I hate it. I do not want to play my games like that. No, no, no. Give me. I know you can get the classic pad. I've got the classic pad, but that should be a standard thing in the box with the Wii. This, oh. And yeah, I know you can tilt it sideways and play it, but that's bloody uncomfortable and you need another button. I would forgive it completely if it had another button there, because Metal Slug, jump, fire, grenade, no, absolutely not, hate it. So that's the stuff I don't like. Nintendo fans will be raging now probably, but I'm used to that. Stuff I do like, guess what, it's Nintendo. Virtual Boy, I love this, it's fantastic. The fact that it kind of weighs a ton when you've got batteries in the battery pack, because the battery pack fits on to the back, so you're powering the whole console thing off of the controller, doesn't bother me. The weight is interesting, but you know. So you've got D-pads on either side and trigger buttons there, A and B button, start and select. It's unusual, but I really like it because you can kind of use these dual D-pads like the dual analog pads that you get on the PlayStation. Yes, they're digital and not analog, but the principles are similar in the kind of control you have over whatever it is you got on the screen. And certainly on, what's that fighting robot game? I forget, Telerobox or something or other like that. It's fantastic because each D-pad controls each hand independently, and for a boxing game, first-person boxing game like that is bloody awesome. And your A/B buttons there. I'll never ever get my head around the Nintendo thing of putting the A on the right and the B on the left. Can't ever understand that. A should go on the, we read from left. Maybe it's because, do they read from right to left? I thought they go whatever. But I love this. It's great. It's one of my favourite. In terms of retro controllers, we'll say, this is my favourite. Yeah. Another interesting one, that is another one that looks like some kind of weird sex toy. Fairchild Channel F. Slightly dusty. It's weird. You can do it as a one or two-handed thing. Yeah, so it's joystick like that. You got your up, down, left, right, diagonal, whatever. The weird thing is the fire. It's kind of weird. It's not entirely intuitive, but only because we've got used to more conventional stuff. But this was out before everything else. This was out before Atari. So in terms of home consoles programmed with cartridges that had ROM chips on them, I'm not going to go into the whole Magnavox thing, this was the first. So yeah, it was very, very original, unique design. And I think it's very clever. Also, it turns as well. You could steer things with it. I don't know if I've got a game that will do that for it, where you use the twist control. But that's actually, I think probably I have, because there are the Pong type games built into it. It's brilliant, really clever. Finding one that isn't kind of knackered, not so easy, and they're hardwired into it as well, which is a bit of a pain really. Now, this is where I have to break a rule. I have two absolute favourite, all-time favourite controllers. One is old, one is not so old. So, but one is a joystick, which is why I can say that the Virtual Boy is my favourite retro controller. My favourite control method on anything other than the other thing I'm going to show you in a minute is that if I have a console or computer, and usually a computer actually, that will take a joystick through a standard Atari connection, I will use this. Typically it's been chewed. Not by me, I don't know who did that, but you find one of these where someone hasn't chewed the top of it. I do actually have a couple that are in really good condition, like the original micro switch ones, and they haven't been chewed. But I have killed so many of these. I mean, bloody, what is it, Decathlon or whatever, Atari Decathlon, where you just, and there is a knack to these as well. Back in the 80s, when I had my Atari 2600 first time around, and friends would come round to play, it used to drive me nuts that they would wrench it, really tug at it, like they thought if they pulled it harder it would be more responsive. You can work these with a really light touch. If they're not knackered, if they've been looked after, you don't need to wrench it at all, and they are really, I've found them to be very, very responsive. And they're always my joystick of choice. If it's a system that can take one of these and you only need one button, this is what I use. Commodore 64, Spectrum, I don't know if it works on the Amstrad, numerous Ataris, actually, numerous, I don't know, maybe VIC-20, yeah, all sorts, MSX I think they do, loads. I've got loads of computers and maybe not so many consoles. I use these. I think they're fantastic. They're just, it does what it says on the tin, to quote a certain TV advert. It's a joystick. You've got a button on it, it works, and it's a known quantity. You know where you're at with one of these. Ergonomics, never heard of it. It's not comfortable, it's not anything fancy. It's a joystick and it works. So finally, and some of you will know this is going to be my choice, my favourite controller, certainly modern controllers, if it's something that won't take an Atari joystick and it's a modern system, it's going to be that. So PS1, PS2, PS3. I also use it on my, I use it for MAME, I use it on my Android pad, on games that will take a controller. The PS3, or generally PlayStation controller, it to me it's perfect. So I'm in complete agreement with Johnny there. This was his choice. It is my choice. I know that people are kind of split between these and the Xbox controller. Well, the only Xbox controller I've got is the Duke. So yeah. But the thing with, for me, this versus the Xbox, because there's not a lot in them, you know, difference wise, it all comes down to the position of these. Everything else on them, the Xbox versus this, I could say, yeah, Xbox is absolutely fine, but I want my analog controllers to be parallel. I don't want this up here and this down here. I want them parallel, and well, this is. So it's I've got small hands, so it fits my hands. I know for some people these are too small, but for me, perfect. The triggers versus what were like just buttons last time around. Initially I was kind of resistant. I thought, no, I don't really want triggers, but now I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't notice the difference. I don't use these. I mean, they could be useful on some games for like accelerate and brake, and having that bit of extra control would be good, but I don't do that. I could see that appealing to people who were used to like the Sega control system for driving games on the Dreamcast, and they used triggers on the Dreamcast controller. I could never get on with that. Originally, when I first started using this kind of controller, and driving games have always been my thing, I would use the old style of control. I would use the left analog, but it would be X to accelerate and square to brake. And it wasn't until the PS2, and quite a long way into using them, probably Gran Turismo 4. For Gran Turismo 3 I was still using the fact that these were touch sensitive, so like more pressure you went faster. I stuck with the buttons for a long time. Eventually, probably Gran Turismo 4, I started accelerate and brake with the right analog control. For a little while it was too much. It was like, yeah, I can do that, but I can't do that and that at the same time. It was like steer and accelerate and brake, too much for my poor fevered brain. But eventually I got the hang of that, and now I could not, well no, I can control a racing game using other methods, but I prefer not to, and I want them parallel like that. So I mean, yeah, very versatile. I mean, because for driving you can steer like that, or rather accelerate and brake like that. You can accelerate and brake like that. You can do it with them. So many choices. That is what I call a versatile controller, and it is, for me, very comfortable. Fits perfectly in my dinky little hands. There you are then. Favourite modern controller. Favourite old joystick. Favourite retro controller. And a whole load that I am really actually very fussy about controllers. I dislike a great many more than I like. The ones that I showed you that I dislike are just a tiny fraction. I could sit and curse many controllers, but that would take quite a long time because I've got quite a lot of them. But anyway, yes, that is my response to Happy Console Gamer, Johnny and Robman. What's your favourite controller? Thank you for watching.